Rise, please, and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Roll call.
Chairman Brennan.
Present.
Vice Chairman Danford.
Present.
Commissioner Moeller.
Present.
Commissioner Viacine.
Present.
That wrong. Commissioner Smithson.
Present.
And Wood. Okay, you have a quorum.
Perfect. Okay.
So we'll start with number 1. So if anyone has a motion for the minutes,
I'd like to move we approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Moeller.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Danford.
Yes.
Commissioner Viacine.
Yes.
Commissioner Smithson.
Yes.
Chairman Brennan.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Okay, so as I mentioned, the next item that we're going to take was number 2, if I had Horizon Health and Wellness here. They are not here this evening, but they are considered an applicant, so you have full range of how you want to fund or make a motion for that. I also, since I did not have Desert Chapel's application in the original agenda packet, and we did pull it up at the last meeting, if you would like to discuss their application at this time, you can. They did do a great presentation, so that's up to the Chairman Brennan. If you have any further questions or the Commission has any further questions, you can call them up at this time if you like.
So I'd like to congratulate you on passing your health inspections. I'm going to own, as I made very public last time, I was somewhat concerned that that might not happen. So that's really great that you guys were able to have that done. Okay. As you look at things, though, I guess I have some questions about whether or not anything's been remediated. In other words, you had several things that had to be fixed. You had holes in the ceilings, you had issues with air conditioning units, and our current Mother Nature is kind of harassing you a little bit with that.
Is it on?
Oh, it's not.
So I think your question was, have any of those things been fixed?
Yes.
Well, the leak in the ceiling, we believe has been fixed. We haven't had a substantial rain to really test it, but we tested it with a garden hose, and it seems to be fixed. We have purchased 2 new air conditioners for the sanctuary part, which in effect helps us because that removes that item from our budget. Trying to think of some of the other things. Most of the ceiling tile has not been replaced. We're waiting to find out if we've got the leak fixed first, but we feel confident that most of the issues that were evident in the photographs have been taken care of or will be soon. I don't know if that answers your question or not. If you had specific things, I'll be happy to talk.
Sure. So the other things that you had revolved around the issue with the stove. Now, it was functioning, but nonetheless, you had hoped that you could replace that. What's the status on the stove?
There are 2 things. It's not the stove itself, and it's not the hood itself. There were 2 things. We hadn't had the inspection for the hood, and the hood, for those of you that may not understand it, the hood is a fire suppression system in itself. And there was some difficulty with the electrical connection. That's been taken care of, I understand. I talked to our trustee just before we came over, and we believe that that's been taken care of. We had a fire department inspection today, unannounced, and everything was okay with what they did, but my understanding is they didn't and wouldn't. It's not their job to check that hood. I don't know whose it is. But we feel like that with the electrics being fixed, it too will pass at this point.
And then just for a little bit of quantifying things, you brought up, and I think it's a really important aspect of a cooling area for individuals to come into and have some respite from the heat. How many people does that serve?
It's hard to tell. We have had up to 200 people in the past come in. I think the average probably last summer on the days that we were open was probably in the neighborhood of 80 to 90 people on a given day.
Okay, so I think what I'm really asking, I'm sorry, because that's a reasonable amount. In fact, I'm impressed with how many that was. But just as there's a sign on the wall in the back that says occupancy, maximum occupancy, what's the maximum occupancy for that?
Of Wooler Hall,
Yes,
off the top of my head, I don't know, but it's, I think about 175 if I recall.
That's the sign, 175, I believe.
Yeah.
okay,
And
all right. And one of the questions that I have a fondness for, and you guys are going to get it, is do you have any thermometers that measure whether or not someone's got 104 or higher fever because of being out in the heat? And then can you establish that their temperature is stabilized by the time that they leave? Do you do anything like that?
No, we've never attempted anything like that. It's mainly a cool place to come and water, lots of water. Yeah. So and we have stockpiled water for this summer. I don't know how many thousands of bottles that we have, but we have stockpiled that for this summer.
Okay, and again, just because I'm a physician, be mindful that one of the biggest other problems besides dehydration is that in overhydration, you dilute electrolytes. And as people have perspired, do you have any mechanism to help replace that, like Gatorade, things like that?
We have constant donations of Gatorade and the like, not necessarily Powerade and other of those electrolytes. One of the things that we found out over the years in running, starting off with our own program, moving to the Genesis program that's moved elsewhere, and then continuing that over the years, that the people, our volunteers, very much understand when people are, what they need. And obviously, food is a big thing, especially on Saturday. But when we get to the heat respite in the summertime, it's mainly they self-select to come in. As far as I know, we've never had a doctor on premise, or we haven't had any, as you said, thermometers to check that. I suppose maybe we should, but we haven't.
Okay, it's just one of the things that might be, beneficial in a way, especially if you're somewhat worried, because once it hits 104, then it becomes an emergency,
Yeah.
and heat stroke can be really
And
problematic.
I know that we have called the local fire department, police to assist us with that when that became evident.
So I've occupied this a great deal, and I'll just ask one more, okay? And that's, you all were here for the presentations of everybody else. You understand what the limits of our funding are.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah, and maybe I could explain that, because our impression of what you all wanted to see, and a lot of that was based upon a video we watched from last year, was that you wanted to see the totality of the services that we provided, and also the totality of the needs that we had. I thought we covered pretty well in the documentation we provided that we have run a capital campaign as recently as 2018. We intend to do so again. So we're mindful that there's not a lot of money, and we know that we can, if we got zero, we would find a way to continue the program, and I think we've got mechanisms in place to deal with that. But from the same standpoint, we feel like we provide a tremendous service to the people that Health and Human Services are dealing with on a daily basis, and felt like it was imperative that you all know at least that we existed, that we've been doing this for a long time, and we've been doing pretty well, but especially with COVID hitting, our ability to carry on with that has been severely limited. We've been very fortunate to get some donations that were enabled us to continue that, and we're very fortunate to get help not only from our own volunteers, but other organizations' volunteers as well to run that program. But it's, if you haven't been down, join us on a Saturday afternoon, and you can see the amount of work that goes into that, and the I guess, a strain on our facilities that we've been able to cope with. But frankly, we had to defer a lot of that maintenance, especially during the years of COVID.
Well, I've appreciated your altruism. I mean, it's really remarkable. You guys give without any sense of wanting something back, and that's
Right.
very precious. That's really something that ought to be complimented fully. Now, the end of my last question, if you will. If it came down to one thing that you desperately need more than anything else, what would that be?
Well, that's a kind of a loaded question, because I think the thing that is most important, number one, is that we have a need for storing both perishable and non-perishable food and beverages. We have a electrical system that in Wooler Hall, the area where we do the serving, which is, it's been stretched to its limit, and we know that if we replace any of our refrigeration or freezer units, that we'll have to upgrade that electrical part, the infrastructure part of that. So it's kind of a whole bunch of things, but that is the most important for this operation, is the infrastructure, the electrical. I think the air conditioning part is not, at least not right now, is not a big deal, and I think we've handled that pretty well and can in the foreseeable future. But the food, the beverages, and the infrastructure within Wooler Hall. We mentioned things in there like the dishwasher, the grease traps, things like that are all dependent upon continual cleaning and so forth, and we've managed to keep up with that. If we would have to replace the dishwasher, of course, that would be a problem. If we have to dig up and replace the grease trap again, that's a problem. But to answer your question, I think the most important thing is the electricity and the storing of the food items primarily.
And if you could give a sort of crude estimate of what that would cost you, what do you think?
We put in a new commercial freezer, which we eventually will have to buy, is about $4,200. Refrigerator's about $1,800. The pantry remodel, that's probably less than the $6,000 at there. But if you go down to I'm trying to think where it is. And under kitchen, there's a replacement upgrades of lights and fixtures and the electrical upgrades to code work. That totals about $7,000, $8,000 somewhere, according to the preliminary estimates that we have.
No, that's fair. Okay, I've occupied quite a bit. Let me ask my colleagues whether or not they have any questions. No? Okay, gentlemen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for taking us first this time.
Oh, you're welcome. See, your patience paid off.
By the way, the kitchen inspection, you got that information, right? Got that back to you. It was interesting because the date on that, the date that we're good through, January of 2025, is the same date on the one that I supplied the committee earlier. So, but it's nice to know that they inspected it and we got a good grade.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to pop up our scoring rubric. which is this, just to give you an idea of where we have been in funding before. This is all based on the 80,000. So this fiscal year for 24-25, the top number here is what's being asked. And then as we go through all of your scoring rubrics, this is where you hash it out, where we will work with, I have another spreadsheet I'll pull up, and it basically subtracts the dollar amounts from the 80,000, and then you can decide if council approves 90, which it's looking like we'll have two options for funding in the end. So let me pull up. I'm going to close this one. So I don't know if you've all had a chance to see each other's scorings, but if you want to, we can go through each one really quickly.
Please.
And then I'm going to have you find that. Let me look real quick and see if I can find my spreadsheet.
And do we have an overlay, Jennifer, of the addition of all of these so that we can see where they come in more or less?
Hang on. I'm sorry, what was your question?
Right. So was there an effort made to take the committee's decisions about recommended funds and put those all together so that in each square we have like X amounts and we can see if we're close to each other or not?
No,
Okay.
because we didn't get these till, I mean, you know, depending on how you were able to open software, some had trouble opening it, so we didn't get these till late Thursday.
Okay.
That's how come you got the agenda Friday,
No problem.
right
No
before I went on vacation.
So that's what maybe we'll do now, unless
So-
somebody has another
Yeah,
idea.
I'm going to let Amy drive, and I'm going to pull up my scoring rubric that will detract or subtract the money. But as you go through this, Amy, I've got them lined up with Dr. Brennan here, Chairman Danford here. So as you go across the top, as they go through each one, if I can find mine. So go ahead and go through and this is where you kind of say, you know, why you gave the dollar amount that you gave, how you felt that the application fulfilled the requirements of what you're looking for. It's all yours.
I almost feel like we should start with mine because I wasn't here and it's pretty blank. Okay. I wasn't here at the last meeting and I thought her email said that there might be more money, but I just based mine on the original 90 that we were thinking of. And I certainly can go many different directions, and that's why I'll be anxious to hear what you guys scored and different things, because I was gone. So that's just briefly mine from the little bit of info I gathered. And that's kind of it.
And so then
Yes, sir.
I think what we ought to discuss is, roughly, I don't want anybody to be put on the spot unduly, but more or less discussing how we came to the conclusion that we did about what sums that were there and how much we can move, because that's what we did last year as well.
Okay.
We tried to find some middle ground and see whether or not we can enhance some of the funding. Because
Yeah.
in some ways, I mean, what you've had here really is what I thought baseline.
Right,
Because
right.
those are the places that have the greatest need and have done the largest amount of involvement with the community. And that was a requirement of the council, was that what benefits the populace of Apache Junction the most directly. Okay? And that was our agenda. I'm going to pick on the chapel for a moment. You'll remember some of my discussion was that many of your needs were structural. And I said I thought that those were pretty secondary sort of benefits. Look, what you do, I was impressed with what you provide. You provide a myriad of services. and they're really desperately needed. But our problem is that it's sort of, if you will allow me, and I'm being maybe a little overly metaphorical, it's almost like a program in which we're dealing with a mortgage format in which we're looking at the house being paid off and you're dealing with the initial payments. And at the end, it's all going to be great if it comes in, but we can't come up with $101,000. I mean, our budget in and of itself isn't that much. So if Jennifer, if you don't mind, if you go to mine, I'll address the issue with the, so this was my reasoning for allocating $3,000 to you all. I thought that, and that's why I asked you what was the most important. I've been very concerned about heat strokes and what goes on in the community. And there's been a real paucity of places for people to be able to have a respite from the environment, and it's brutal. I mean, we had several deaths in Phoenix, and I don't know how many we had in Apache Junction. Do we have that data anywhere? How many deaths over the summer were overtly related to heat stroke?
Don't.
Okay. I'm sure it's more than what we think. At the time last year when we met, there were approximately 100 people that were known to be homeless in Apache Junction. I'm sure you guys encounter many more than that. And so those people are at risk. And as much as someone had the opinion before that, well, they acclimate to that. Well, we're human beings, and we're only able to regulate temperature so far. We are fortunate that we're mammals and we have internal thermal regulation versus reptiles that are all exothermic. And you'll notice that snakes aren't around when it's 118. They're smarter than we are. So with that, it gets to be a problem. So that's why I thought that maybe $3,000 would help with an air conditioning unit. And that's why I allocated that much to your facility. If others want to discuss their decision about the chapel, we can discuss that.
Oh, I thought we were going by each person's page. I don't know the answer to
So
that.
I'm working on taking each of your dollar amounts that here and putting them onto a spreadsheet. So we can move through them, and then I'll have a combined at the end so that you can see at the very end. But each person can address their spreadsheet as to how and why they did what they did, and that'll give me an opportunity to fill out a spreadsheet, and I'll bring that up at the end when you're done with this, and then you'll see how each individual funded it.
Okay.
And we can go from the dollar amounts there.
Jennifer, I could have sworn that when you sent out the agenda the other day, that I actually saw a spreadsheet that listed all of us and our scoring rubrics and how much we were going to allocate.
You got their mouse. I don't have a keypad on this thing, or I don't have a. No. So what I had here was the scoring, each individual scoring rubrics, and just the application for Health and Horizon if you wanted to review that again.
Okay.
So this was Dr. Brennan's. I just need to grab one number off of this. That was for the Boys and Girls Club.
And then as we go through it, is there a spot for, how would we, I guess it all comes down to whether or not they allocate the 90,000 in addition?
So, yeah, in the email I sent last Wednesday, we're going to work with 80,000, but tonight we're also going to do a 90,000.
Okay.
So that way you have determined how the funding will go for 80,000 and how you would like to see it go for 90, depending on when council adopts that tentative budget.
Okay.
Can I suggest that it might be simpler to just simply say, we're going to go for 80,000 and then have a separate proposal for 10,000 that might be addendum to the 80,000 so that that sum could be split up however to add to stuff in that way.
Or you can do a percentage across the board. You
Okay.
have 8 applicants, and you can do a percentage that would equal 100%.
Okay. What's the opinion of the committee?
Percentage.
When I did mine at home, I went by percentage.
Okay,
I figured out how much money for the 80,000, figured out the percentages and then just applied that to the 90,000.
Okay.
oh, okay,
So it
I'm
didn't
fine with
make that
percentages,
increase
that's fine.
proportionally.
okay. I'd be fine with looking at a percentage and trying to find some middle ground for us.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Do you,
This is a hard one to do every year because we only have $80,000 and we're being asked for, there's a lot of needs out here in the community. So as Dr. Brennan's alluded to, we have to figure out where the biggest bang for the buck is and where we think we're getting the best value. I know I'm not real popular with some of the choices that I made. To me, one of the biggest ones is food. Food is a basic human right. If we don't feed people, we can't do anything else, get anything else done. And the Superstition Food Bank, to me, has done the best job here of feeding the most number of people. So I always allocate the lion's share to them. The bigger than us, the only problem, I agree with suicide prevention among kids and first responders. I think it's extremely important, but I'm not completely convinced that paying a guest speaker $15,000 to come out and talk to kids is actually going to do much good. My wife was in education for 30 years, and we both had the feeling that this really isn't the way to attack the program. I also wasn't really satisfied that you were attacking the first responders. So again, like we only have a limited amount of money, and I got to put it where I think the biggest bang is. On the Desert Chapel, a lot of what your needs, again, like Dr. Brennan says, are structural. And again, I feel that there's other places that are actually doing the job right now. So that's how I came over the breakdown I did. It's a hard choice to try to decide who gets what because I would love to be able to put out $250,000 and say, y'all get a check. Mm-hmm. But we don't have that kind of money. We don't have that allocation. And there's no way we're going to get it. So
I keep trying it, that lottery, but it just isn't working out, guys. Sorry.
I know the city council is looking at that every year, trying to give more and figure out where we can give more. I know our budgets are, we're facing some budget restraints in the future with some of our tax revenue slowing down. So it's a drop in the bucket, but it's the best we can do. I'm willing to, as last year, I'm pretty flexible on this, so I fully expect to be overridden on most of this. I do think we should give the bulk of it to the food bank. I do think that food is if you don't feed people, you're not going to get anything else done.
Excuse me.
I know if I'm hungry, I'm not accomplishing anything.
Okay. Anybody else?
Okay. Well,
That's fine. All right. So what do I got? I was totally unaware of what all the Desert Chapel did, and I definitely see that you provide a need. I feel like you provide something that maybe could be considered duplicated, but at the same time, I think that it's individual. I know that for the food bank, you have to provide information to get the food, I do believe, versus your church, you say you don't even ask for your names. You need it, you get it. I think that's awesome. Horizon, I think it's a refrigerator and shelving for food pantry as well, and I think that their population is people that go to that center. I'm assuming yours is that the chapel is really AJ because they're homeless, so they're definitely in Apache Junction versus Horizon. I don't know, but this food, people need food. Begin Again Homes, I think that's a great new program to me. I don't know how many other programs are out there that are similar to that. Bigger than us, I think it is awesome that you want to do suicide prevention with youth. Again, I don't know how I feel about it just being a guest speaker. And then I don't know financially if you two work with a school and there's a fee because you follow up. Like, I don't know how that works, but definitely giving it a try. Food bank, definitely a necessity in our community. Boys and Girls Club, I think that there's a great alternative if somebody can't pay for getting to other facilities or a daycare or staying home or babysitting. And then the AJ Community Development Corporation, I don't know of another one that is like that here in our community. And then the New Leaf, I definitely think there's a need for that because I've heard people actually use that facility. So I'm definitely open for changes, but I think I like the idea of everyone getting something.
Am I up?
Are we, okay, we're done? All right.
Yes,
And there we
thank you.
go.
Thank you. Oh, are you going again? Oh, okay. I saw that she clicked on you. I was like, oh.
All right, so I worked backwards and just started allocating money to the people that I thought I wanted to give it to first. So Horizon, fresh produce, refrigerator, not a lot of money. I thought that was a good spend. I actually, bigger than us, I actually loved your program. I work in emergency medicine. I see the backside of things. I actually see the value in what you're doing, and I would have given you the full 15 if I could have. So I gave you 10, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing. Let's see, a new leaf. You know, I was on the fence at first, and then I really feel like the program is underutilized here in Apache Junction. I would like to see a lot more referrals that way, so I would be easily convinced to give you more. The AJ Community Center, I mean, that was, you know, not a big deal. I think the one that I probably am not making friends with is Beginning at Homes. I think it would have been a better sell for me if you would have told me I was paying for lodging or something of that nature, but to pay for salaries and operational expenses, I just had a hard time with that, so I didn't put any money or funding there. Boys and Girls Club, it's a big national organization. I didn't really see in the application how much money was being allocated to the program itself here in AJ. I would have liked to have seen that versus, you know, not really knowing what the need was. So I didn't allocate a whole lot there. And then I did allocate quite a bit to the food bank because food insecurity is a real issue here in this community. So that's why I did what I did.
Okay. So then I'm going to pull up, I'm going to leave those up, but I should have a new spreadsheet for you. Okay. So if you just want to double check your numbers, make sure I've got them correct. Dr. Brennan, I believe this is how you have allocated funds.
Yeah, I think that's correct. And I too tried to weight those organizations that most directly benefit the community. Food Bank has been remarkable, and that's been something that's there. I had some concerns about the backpacks. They're an interesting concept. I didn't know if they were the most healthy and what have you, but nonetheless, $75,000 was a bit of a move, and that was much. The problem I had with Boys and Girls Club was one that I had last year, and that's that the goal is to have academic advancement as well as a sense of learning how to problem solve and working together, and I think you do that. I've talked to a few educators and others in the interim and asked about their experience with Boys and Girls Club, because I said that the implication I had was that more senior students, meaning 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, seemed to not come. And there's a sense that they reveal, apparently, to these educators, that they don't feel like they belong because they see the focus as being on younger students. I don't know if that's what you as well experience or not, if you want to come up and sort of address.
Different boys and girls clubs, and it's like some of them, it's run, when you're in an elementary area with younger, it is harder for the older kids to want to come back, but we do have several high school students that do come and that are regular students.
But as,
Not near as many as we do our younger kids, but we still have.
Yes, and our services go beyond just being in that club every day with our teams. We have our AC Youth Force program, which allows our teams to get paid internships all over the valley. So we work with a lot of different East Valley corporations and businesses, and we also in Phoenix and all over. So kids from all over the valley have the experience to get work experience if they when that can help them go to college. Or if college isn't for them, they can go to Taco Bell and learn how to be a manager, learn how to manage people and schedules, and get all of that experience that can help them in the long run. So our services do go beyond just that physical being in the club, and we want to get those teams in a good place to help them create their futures.
right. But as you remember, you adroitly indicated that Pinell County, because we don't have exactly, I guess, information about Apache Junction proper, has a graduation rate of 79% out of high school.
Yes, so there's a Boys and Girls Club of America statistic that any student that's attends Boys and Girls Club is twice as likely to graduate as any other student in their high school.
Certainly, but when I asked you how many people graduated, there were 2. And so,
Well, all of our students, all of our members in the club are on track to graduate as they're going from second to third grade, third to fourth grade, that they're not falling behind in school. And just because we don't have kids in, just because we have 2 graduating seniors at this moment doesn't mean the rest of the kids aren't going to graduate.
no, I understand. And perhaps it's my naivete about how many people you would have had. So if you take the number of individuals that you have in the lower grades, what is it that allows them to progressively decline in number as they progress academically in grades? Because, as revealed, only 79% graduate from high school in Pinell County. And, when looking at statistics, the major break grade is about 10th grade. What happens is people tend to look at their academic standing and they say, you know what? I'm so far in the hole that I can't get out of here in any reasonable time. I give. And they leave, and that's sabotaging. And what happens is that lends to a higher proclivity. It's not magically certain that they're going to be involved in criminal activity, they're going to be involved in substance use, they're going to be involved in people like the goons out in Chandler, etc., as a sense of belonging and what's purposeful. It creates some real dysfunctional behavior. And that's a travesty. That's, as you look at it, those are lost resources because they compromise themselves and they don't have the ability to have sustainable, gainful employment.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're trying to avoid, is having those kids not have good role models or good experiences or not be happy in school. We want to show them that school is a good thing, and focusing on their education and their workforce skills and everything that we push in our clubs and all of our programming is important and will benefit them in the future. So we really are trying to increase those graduation rates, help kids, do things that they care about, help them find their passion, learn good decision-making skills, all that.
And I need to let you know, I've heard many, many laudatory things about you all, really. And from women who said, I had a situation where I had children and I had to have someone deal with them so that I could work and sustain us. And they were just phenomenal in helping me do that. So look, you do some great things. All I'm asking is there a way to try and amend this so that that other population really can come to some place where they have greater benefits that they can then choose. I mean, opening doors instead of closing them gives them greater opportunities. Now, what I found missing was you had a young man that was going to be a welder, and I appreciate that his father was welding and he's going to be mentored by dad, but nonetheless, the opportunity to be able to go to EVIT and maybe learn to be an underwater, under a sea welder, and they make, I think it's close to $300 an hour. It's off the wall.
So just in that particular circumstance, I am not familiar with EVET, but I do know with ACT course, we are expanding our business partnerships and we're looking to get kids in those fields that they're interested in. So we see a kid like Brian who is so interested in that, we want to get him and any other kids just like him into exactly what you're saying, focus on what they care about so that they can have successful futures.
Okay.
And you're like, I couldn't agree with you more, like, we need to, that 10th grade where kids say, oh, like, throw in the towel, it's not for me, I'm doing too poorly, like, we really want to change that. And at that age, it's a perfect time for them to participate in career readiness and try and get them on the right track.
Okay, thanks. All right.
Okay, so I've rearranged things as to how they appeared on your scoring rubric, and then I've added a couple options. So as you work your way through, we're going to plug in numbers, and we got an $80,000 column here and a $90,000 column here. And we can do as many of these as you need until you finally come to consensus, and then we'll vote on A, B, C, D, whichever option you like first, and whichever option you like second for B.
So, maybe the way to try and do this would be to be the ones that come closest initially, because that may have the least conflict,
Okay.
and then move to those that are more disparate towards the end. But I want to take a moment and talk about Horizon. I'm concerned that Horizon isn't here again today. And I understand that it was our glitch, if you will, that our phones weren't working, that they weren't able to access us last time. Nonetheless, I was ready to ask them about a program that they had of Train the Trainers, in which they had documents that were available akin to what was available with Bigger Than Us, and looking at dealing with all sorts of gang-related activities, bullying, etc., and mental health issues. And as I revealed to you gentlemen, that there is a document that's posted at the Arizona Department of Health Services that has a plan on suicide prevention 2024 to 2026. There may even be resources readily available to you all at that site. And they have demographics that are pretty remarkable because they deal with a broad spectrum of entities, from tribal entities to various ethnic groups to various communities, etc. So it really breaks it down in very clean statistical ways. Okay, so is anybody of a different opinion about how we may start and move on this?
It looks like the majority of us, actually all of us except for one, want to give Horizon almost what they asked for.
Okay.
So I would suggest that we keep that under Horizon, we go for the
Like
yeah,
20?
3227, basically what they're asking for.
All right. Okay.
Instead of summing line 14, can we just put the average across so that we know what the average is
Good
as a
point.
roll up for us?
Good point.
And so, I honestly don't know how to do that.
So
Formula.
When you went to sum, click on the drop down and then hit
Do an
average
average?
instead.
There we go.
I think you have to delete what was there to begin with, though.
Okay.
Just escape, delete, and then.
Come on.
let's see.
There you go.
Okay, here you go.
Now you can just do a drag all the way across.
Hopefully. If it does it correctly. Sometimes I've noticed it doesn't. No. Let
Yeah,
me
you
just
probably have to
work
do 'em
this out.
individually. Sorry.
Or just,
Okay.
Okay. So now, maybe one of the things that we can do is this. In looking at those averages, because that was a clever idea, I think that helps. Are there any of those averages that we look at that might be able to be endorsed broadly by this committee? And just, let's start with just selecting one and then go and try and see where we come up with funds. Oh, that's 82,000. Okay, you can see that that's already
Yeah,
2,000
so
over, but still,
you're just
Yeah, that's pretty
2,000
close.
yeah,
difference.
pretty close. Pretty
And I
close.
think last year, that's what we came real close to doing that, to settling on the averages.
Right.
Where everybody, nobody's real happy with what we gave out, but everybody's happy with something.
yeah, I guess I feel, and I know there's differing opinions here, but I really feel strongly that I would love to be able to pay for at least 2 sessions with Bigger Than Us. And I know that, you know, I just, $10,000, the cost of one funeral, that's $10,000 easy, you know? If you can prevent one death, one childhood death, the fact that they have an avenue, you know, a voice and those referrals, over 144 referrals, I think it was. Even if it saves one kid, I don't know, I think we're doing a lot here to help with food insecurities and whatnot. There's a lot of other really great things going on, but I would love to see at least funding for 2 sessions.
That's 10, that'd be 10, right?
Yeah.
Is everybody else cool with that?
We can plug in the number and work around.
Jennifer, can you plug that in and we'll
Sure.
play with?
Okay.
Sorry, Doc.
No problem. Yeah, I don't have veto power here. So, okay. That's an interesting thought, honest. And nonetheless, I too had some concerns about bringing out an outside entity. I tried to Google him. Maybe I'm just that inept, but I had innumerable other things I was looking at. I went to some health conferences over at ASU, and that occupied a lot of my time this last few weeks. Again, I don't want to see Boys and Girls Club left with about 9,400. I think that they really do have a mission, and I'd like to see that enhanced and see if we can come closer to about, I had 22, and maybe I was, sorry guys, maybe I was being over generous, huh? but I'm not. And so if we can come somewhere between 15 and 20, I think that would be some place where we could trim some sums and move some money around a little bit. Perfect, 17, love it, okay. One of the suggestions about Horizon as well, because I like that we want to go with a 3327.
Chairman Brennan, if I could.
Sure.
Now, remember, you have the option, if you don't care for what the funds are going to go for, you can make a motion that the funds be contingent upon them coming up with a different program. Like you mentioned 2 years ago, we had funded them significantly with some books and trained the trainer on mental health. They had trained some of our park and rec staff but that, I haven't seen anything recently on mental health. So you can make, even if you do your dollar amounts, you can say that this will be contingent upon what we'd like to see you do is you're a health provider. We would like to see you either find transportation for the seniors and the disability, because this commission focuses more on our senior community. It focuses on those disabled. But again, times have changed, and right now there's a tremendous amount of stress that everybody is under. So we're having to deal with a little bit change in what the original design of this commission was. So remember, you can make your motions how you want.
Okay, good. And the other area, of course, is that we've had no one that's come forward to particularly provide for bathing facilities, particularly during the heat of summer.
Bathing?
Bathing, yeah.
So
Like
Genesis?
mobile,
Oh, like a mobile unit?
right,
No.
okay.
We should call Chandler and find out how much theirs cost.
There you go. Oh, really?
Okay, so the Salvation Army, and I'm going to repeat because it's not picking up on the recording. Salvation
thank
Army
you.
is looking at purchasing a mobile
Good.
shower unit.
I'm glad you added that. Okay.
Okay.
Food bank, I think, is pretty much in the range that we're looking for as being one of the major funding source entities at 40.4.
My only thought is, even if we don't give funding for the backpacks, I would personally like to see them at the 50.
Okay.
But I don't know if we'll be able to stretch it.
Well, let's see.
I don't.
I mean,
I know how much food is,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
I'm buying it from students and everything else, and it's expensive.
Correct.
Right now, with what we have, the four that we've decided on or looked at, we're over our budget.
Correct.
60, 77, yeah, just slightly. It's okay, that's how come we have all these options to play with. So we can adjust. We can adjust.
So does that mean we drop down to option 2 now, since we've already, option 1 is done?
We can adjust option 1 if you want. We can reallocate numbers.
Well, we're $327 over. Take that out of Boys and Girls Club for that option.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
historically,
how about
we've
if we
only
do-
given 35,000 to the food bank, and we know the cost has gone up, so.
We can keep 10 here.
Or
We
oh,
can
7.5,
keep. Is it 30,
bigger than us. Sorry, guys.
220. Sorry, my fingers are just moving a little too quickly. They were 3227. So you're at 78 there, and we can just keep working. Any comments on AJCDC?
I think that's a necessity. I think that's a great program, and they work with the AJ Code Enforcement for elderly and disabled. And I don't know if there's another program that is free of charge that works with the city.
That's the only one I know of that does what they do.
Yeah.
Right, and they remediate real critical issues like code violations
Oh,
and stuff,
no, where's
so.
that PowerPoint?
I think
Yeah.
I'm still struggling with Boys and Girls Club, and maybe I just need an understanding of budget shortfalls, because I didn't feel like I understood that with your presentation. You know, you showed the $282 million worth of revenue that Boys and Girls Club brings in, but I didn't see, like, what is allocated to the AJ Boys and Girls Club. I'm still confused.
I'm going to ask that if you ask someone to come down, that they need to speak into this, to the mic. So please come down to the podium. Sorry.
Thank you. It's just because it's being recorded and people can watch the video at home later.
Hi. Okay, so I hope that this can answer your question. So Boys and Girls Clubs of America is our parent organization that brings in the $280 million, or however much it is. They then divide that, they take their cut, which is about 30% of that, that stays with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, and then it gets distributed out to all Boys and Girls Clubs, separate 501c3s. So that's Boys and Girls Clubs of the Valley, us, Scottsdale, Tucson, and all over the country. So when it comes down to it, they really aren't giving that 280 million to us. It's a lot smaller than that. And to run our AJ Club for a year is about $500,000. So that's how much we need to run the salaries, operations, programmings of just one club is about $500,000.
And how much did they give you of that $500,000 that is needed to run your club?
Off the top of my head, I'm sorry, I don't have that exact number, but per club, it's probably about between $10,000 and $20,000. Like when you break it down per club, because we have Boys and Girls Club of the Valley has 31 individual club sites.
So let's say it takes you, so let's say your operating budget is 500,000 and they give you 20, so you still have $480,000 budget shortfall. How do you pick that up? Just by philanthropy, or like how do you?
So yes, our donors, our individual giving, grants like this, yesteryear, which was this weekend, events, things like that is how we make up for that.
And then you had an event, a gala event last year at the end of spring that generated 175,000, isn't that right?
Yes, yes, and we just had that same event yesteryear, this past weekend, yes.
And how'd that do?
Did about the same, a little bit better. We did about $200,000 is the number we have right now, yes.
Okay.
And so what do you anticipate for a budget shortfall this year?
We're really hoping to get to the 500,000. I can't really speak on the budget shortfall, but we do everything we can to reach that 500,000.
Thank you.
Did things change because you changed location? Like, not fees, but because you changed location, did that matter in regards to any additional fees for the facility that you're now in? Because you're right, by the high school, right, you used to be at Four Peaks or something, right?
Yes, yeah. So now we're closer to the high school, I think.
I don't know the exact amount that we have to pay for renting the building, but we are in a bigger facility. We are serving more kids than what we were at Four Peaks. The building's definitely in better condition than what it was, so it's like still being able to keep our kids safe, but yes, the expenses of being able to run the building did increase from where we were at before.
And our goal is to increase our ADA at our new location.
Yes. To kind of help
Average
offset.
daily attendance, sorry. Yeah.
And how conveniently located now that you're at the high school. So I hope that helps your program.
Exactly, more teens.
Yeah,
Exactly, yeah.
I think that's great.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a quick question. Did you receive any funding from Lost Dutchman Run? The Lost Dutchman Marathon?
No, not that
you know
I
of.
am personally aware of.
Okay. Yeah. Thought I'd check.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. Okay, back to the spreadsheet.
So here we had broken down what each of the applicants was asking for their funding. So apologies, this should help a little bit more as you try to get through your funding allocations. And again, you can pick all of it or parts of it. And then in your motion, we'll just go through each slide and you can say, a new leaf, I want to fund 3,400 for the bottom three, just as an example. Okay, so you are back on roughly here. So AJCDC, you want to start there? We can plug numbers in.
I apologize. I get thrown off because we're already at $78,000. You know, like I see that number and I'm just like,
Okay, let me do this. Okay, so let's start there, and we'll also start over here with Horizon.
oh, so we're really sold on Horizon.
Okay, so this kind of gives you a figure, whoops, my formula's missing something.
From,
Do you want it,
for those of us that are new, Horizon,
that's all it on Horizon being that amount? Or, no,
I mean, I've seen the name and stuff.
so,
I'm a little disappointed we've not heard from them.
yeah, me too. It is not
And I would have liked an update on what they did with the lighting and any kind of partnerships with the city of Apache Junction from last year.
Correct. Absolutely. And on top of that, the other question is that their math is really funny. They said that the poverty rate was 13.9%, and with 43,000 people, just 10% would be 4,000 in some individuals. They said 609, I believe. And so that didn't make sense. And then they talked about the individuals that they dealt with were those people that visited their facility. Well, those are access eligible individuals.
Okay.
Did they have private patients too?
I believe they do.
Okay.
I think I sent some information over to you about, it's difficult for me to remember who I sent information to, about all the services that they do provide.
Right.
Um,
But when you look at, so the garden is kind of interesting. I was being a
Yeah.
little silly and wondered whether or not what they
I
really
saw that.
needed was to expand to about a hectare of land, because they only had enough to give the people that they
pound.
said,
Like half a pound of food
yeah, half a
during
pound
the
a year.
season. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that just didn't make sense. I mean, relative to purchasing even a refrigerator, it's gonna be gone before they need a refrigerator to cool it. And if you have shelving, you don't need shelving for perishables. You need perishables for what are called dry goods, like beans, rice, etc., and those kind of things. So it really is rather disconcerting that they didn't show up to sort of explain that stuff. And I don't mean to penalize them unduly because of that. I think they do serve a purpose, but they should have been here to advocate.
Agreed.
Okay.
So why don't we start by giving them $450 for the shelving, and then we can go on from there.
Okay.
Okay, you want to do that?
Sounds good.
Okay.
I like that. I like that.
I think, yeah, that shelves that idea,
Well, I didn't even get that in there correctly.
yeah,
Okay.
okay, good. All right. Now, AJCDC really does do some rather impressive things, as I said. Their writing up proposals was not the best, but this last year they really improved on that. But they really do meet and resolve various code violations. Now, the number, though, is interesting. I don't know what the total number of code violations are, but they implied that they served 10. So I don't know if that's a fraction of the total number or the complete total number. I can't quite believe that there are only 10 code violations in all of Apache Junction.
There are several.
Yeah.
There are several. And they work with them and they pick the worst violations. They pick the ones that are basically headed to court, that are going to have to pay penalties and fines. And so they will also let the court know that they are currently working on the project and that they're cleaning it up, so as to avoid the penalties and fines, because they can't afford them anyway.
Correct. And the irony, though, was that in revealing the one case where they expended a great deal of energy and funds, turned out to be someone that was simply renting the place and it wasn't really theirs. And so that was,
But they were renting it from the owner who was a hoarder. It
Correct.
wasn't the renter so much, it was the,
right.
yeah. And sometimes that's where you find affordable rent.
Well,
You know,
that's
it's
true.
maybe not the best home to rent, but it's affordable for you. Again, you can make a motion and determine where you want the funds spent or where you'd like to see them allocate the funds. And when we do the contracts, what we do is in the contract, it lays out what they are to do with the funds. And then they supply us with quarterly reports and receipts for that information.
Okay.
What if we do $47.50 for the community revitalization projects and the annual Make a Difference Day? More? Less?
No, probably less.
Less.
The next topic, can we
I
make
mean,
it 4?
is this their only source? That's a big Apache Junction thing. I mean, so this is the only source for the annual Make a Difference Day? Their only source of money? Because that's.
Oh, they don't get the, they're all volunteers, and I do, my understanding is that, is somebody here from here, from that program?
No.
I don't see Dave. My understanding is that the shirts were also a part of that deal, because you get volunteers from not only from the city staff and employees, or you know what I mean, and then kids groups, so everyone gets a shirt to say that they participated in that. But I don't know specifically, because the equipment is separate.
They have to purchase some of the equipment because that's not donated, but a lot of donations come in, and some of our local businesses provide the shirts, they do the silk screening on them. So they get a lot of in-kind contributions.
I'm just not sure that this falls under the help that we're looking for. Like the equipment and the shirts and everything else, because you could go get that
The
in
annual
other
Make a
places.
Difference Day, maybe, because that's a big community thing, but I feel like the rest of it is like so that they can operate year-round with the city code compliance, right? I don't know. I don't know the answer.
I am not gonna, I don't know enough to answer that question for you.
See, and they do get donations predominantly from the hardware store that I kept blocking the name on. I don't remember if it's True Value or if it's one
Yeah,
other.
we
It's
have a
right
lot of
across
community
from
support.
the Flatirons Park. Yeah.
Correct.
So, all right, can we go back to the chart and then see? The funds are just really tight, and so as I put down 4,000, I think, you know, they had requested, what was it, 7,200?
7468.
Okay, so I was almost gonna go for half of that, so like 3,500.
Okay.
The Boys and Girls Club, I'm afraid, is staying kind of where they are. They've,
Okay.
let's see.
Can we drop the food to 45?
Sure.
Yeah, that's fair. No, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, food's important, but you're right. I mean, we've only got so many funds and,
There's a lot of
We-
great programs that
yeah.
need support, so.
okay.
So if you remember, a New Leaf is the new owners of CAFA, which is the domestic violence shelter. And so we will take in quite a few from outside of our community, but then those that are in our community are sent outside. So this is a reciprocating thing. I will say, working with PD, we have a tremendous amount of domestic violent cases here in Apache Junction. And I know that I know that A New Leaf works extremely close with our PD in trying to resolve those issues. So A New Leaf was CAFA.
I did see a CAFA table out at the Battle of the Badges for fire and police. So is that separate, or like it just hasn't changed its name?
That's a great question. So we are maintaining the CAFA name because it's really tied to the community, but A New Leaf is the overarching agency, and CAFA is now a program of A New Leaf. And the funds that we are requesting are for hotel nights to put AJ residents in hotels when the police have gone out on a domestic violence or a sexual violence call. So those funds are specifically for people coming from the law enforcement to us that need a safe place to be. Because a lot of times we can't house them in our shelter's full. So let's put them in a hotel night. So those funds are directly for AJ residents.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
And our contracts are, they are non-transferable. So when we sign a contract with a local organization here, and like they were bought out by A New Leaf, many cities, they're non-transferable. So they kept the CAFA name so that we could continue with the quarterly payments to them. So just FYI, our contracts are non-transferable.
Right, and what's been defined is absolutely the dilemma here is that because of their precarious standing, they have to be moved geographically to protect them. And so there is this interchange, and I think that's almost a quid pro quo. So that's there. And the term for what A New Leaf is an umbrella agency. and therefore,
Okay.
but that conjures up a question. How much does a New Leaf get of those resources? Is there a percentage of those funding that goes for administrative services out of a New Leaf?
So the funding that we've requested does not include any administrative costs. Those are only the costs for us to put people in hotels and then provide them with food, transportation, and essential items they might need. So there's no administrative costs in those. Yes, a New Leaf does bear the burden of the administrative costs for, to run an organization, to run the shelter, to run the outreach programs.
Right, but they've got lots of sub-entities.
We have other, yes, funding sources to cover those
La
costs.
Mesita, the men's shelter.
Yeah.
Et cetera, yeah.
Yeah.
The whole Larry Simmons, yeah, all of those.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks.
all right. So, what do you say to about equally like we did with AJCDC, about 3,500?
Okay.
Okay, so right now, that has us at 67.4.
I'm going to have this, so you have have an idea of where we're sitting.
Okay. Oh, good, okay. Over.
Okay, so just slightly. So some of this will work for, as soon as I figure out my formula.
I guess I'm struggling with if, a New Leaf is taking domestic violence victims and putting them in shelters, and we're giving them $3,500. Why are we giving $6,000 to a smaller amount of people that are getting vouchers? I mean, actually, we're just paying for administrative costs here. So, I mean, either I'd flip it, or
I agree.
I'm struggling with that.
Oh, I thought you just put the 6,000 there just to
I
show
just,
us
that was
the
just,
money.
I'm just
what we
showing
have
you,
left.
yeah.
Oh,
So,
okay.
sorry, I did the same thing with Bigger Than Us and Desert Chapel. So we can always flip it.
Not saying that the program's not good. It's,
You're just trying to figure out where to place money.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. 5.
5, okay. We had 3,500, I think,
No.
is where you were at. We're still at a little over.
So maybe keep a New Leaf drop it down to 35.
Which one was that?
I hate to do that, though.
Bigger than us?
No, then, well, guys. Are we sure we want to give 15,000 to Boys and Girls Club? That's a big chunk of change.
Relatively speaking, you're right.
One of my concerns is that I know it doesn't cover all their budget, but Boys and Girls Club does have a lot of funding sources that a lot of these other agencies do not have. So some of these folks are relying on us to help out. I think that they're depending on us more than Boys and Girls Clubs is. And this is not to disparage what Boys and Girls Club does. I mean, I belonged to one when I was a kid, and they're a great organization. But we just don't have that kind of money.
Oh, my goodness, okay, so,
So we are 900 over right now.
What did I do here?
okay. Okay. That does that,
So there's your 80.
okay.
So you're
So what do you all think?
close. You can kind of adjust.
Actually, that option 5 looks reasonable.
Yeah, and that seems to cover
There's some trade-offs
the
there.
bases, and then since there are 8 entities,
So we could, I don't mean to interrupt, sorry. We could then, if there is the additional, hopefully, 10,000, then maybe, Commissioner Voisin was saying we can, with bigger than us, put some more money there towards the,
I thought we already decided to go with the percentage.
Right.
oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, we
So
did.
everybody would
We
get
did. Yeah.
something
So
out of the 10%.
if
if
we
we
go to
did-
90, this column of under the 80 would just be increased proportionately.
Okay.
Oh, percentage?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I forgot about
I think
that.
that's what we,
Yeah, no, we did. And that's kind of a creative way to
I was
look
like,
at it,
oh,
then
uh-oh.
say, so it's a percentage predicated on what the initial sums are of the whole, and that's the percentage that the other part would be part of.
yep.
Okay. I like that. I was gonna go like 10, 12% across the board, but no, okay.
So, are you happy with option 5? Or do you want to adjust anything? Does anyone have comments where they'd like to see an adjustment made?
Give just a minute.
Sure.
My mind is
Yep.
slow.
Yep.
I want to see this problem with 79% graduation resolved, and Boys and Girls Club has the possibilities. Let's see how we can add to their sum a little bit and leave probably, as we look at things, HACDC might be able to be increased by like 500 or something, and then if we have the other 10,000. So that's like 4.
So if we put 4 here,
Yeah.
we're 500 over, and did you want to split that 5 or take it away from 1?
But we're trying to,
So I'm down here.
okay. So would that equal 90? No. That's, okay, so we're at 80,500. So we have another 9,500 to play with, to try and divvy up potentially. And I want to emphasize that because we don't know that that money's going to ever materialize.
More than likely it will.
Oh, well, okay. Because one of the big concerns was when the legislature took away that rental tax that
And we lost
towns
3.9
and-
million.
And cities got, that really did put a crimp in the budget. And then when the state decided a 2.5 flat tax, that did one even more. So it's like, okay, so, so do you want to, you all want to try and then take a look at these numbers? And so what we'll have is, we'll have option 5 for our 80, and then we'll use option 1A, so we don't get confused, for our 90.
Is the asterisk.
I thought we were going straight across the board, everybody gets a percentage of it. Like, I misunderstood. I thought like,
No, I thought.
No, that's what, that's
That's
what,
what we,
that's what,
that's what we did, what we were talking about was just going, increase everything proportionately, and he's wanting to change it.
yeah, I did. So we can go back to
Now
that.
you're confusing me.
I was
Yeah,
like,
no,
I'm not
no,
good
no.
with math like that. I don't know what the
Yeah,
percentage
just-
is,
just-
but.
Just try and look at what these percentages are of the initial 5, option 5.
Option?
Look at what percentage, like 6,000 is of the 80, 3,500 is of the 80, et cetera, and then use that percentage into the 10,000 as an added part to those sums. Does that make sense?
Say that again. Say that again. I didn't quite hear
Well, I
you.
think the best way to do it is what percentage is the total to each group of the 80, and then apply that percentage of the 90.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's what I just.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the percentage, so it would be whatever the percentage is of 6,000 of the 80,000.
Correct.
And then you would increase it by that percentage to the 90,000.
Well, it's like a double equation. You have to take that, and that portion of 10,000 would be what would be added to it.
Yes.
Right,
Okay.
okay.
Sorry, yes. That I'll have to figure out how to do on the formula later. Listen, all I know is just the basics of what I can get by with. Never had a true Excel class.
You're doing good.
You do.
So, would you like to adjust, other than the percentage difference between what they're funded, So if we're gonna work with the 80,000, we need to adjust slightly here. Because you're at 80,500.
Right, but we have that in option 5. So 80,000 covers that 80,000,
Does,
yeah.
So for
And
Okay.
I think that's what we agreed to as a base.
Yeah, so for every.
Okay.
For every line item, just multiply it by 0.125, and that'll give you the additional 10%.
Oh, thank you.
Unless I did that
and I
wrong,
need
and
the
anyone
equal
can
sign in
correct me.
front.
Yeah, check it out. Is it
Who's a,
Could she just put it underneath?
0.125 of 50,000?
yeah, so you're gonna have to let me go back to my office and figure out how to do the percentage.
Okay, no problem.
I'll be honest.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. So-
Okay, so this will be your base?
Right, that'll be the base. And
Okay.
then the concept is, again, just to take whatever these sums are of the 80,000 as a percentage of that, and then take the 10,000.
Divide it by the 10,000.
And it's that, it is that percentage of that.
Okay,
Jennifer, I have about 30 seconds. I can show you how to do that if you want.
sure. You wanna come on down here?
Come on
great.
down.
Come on down.
I've got
That
about
would be
7
great.
7 Excel workbooks I have open all the time.
There you go.
Mine would be
Have a
about
seat.
30 hours.
I'm an Excel nerd. Okay, where's your
Okay.
Where's your
So
field at?
basically, we'll need a motion, and if you would like to see any entity do something different with the money, you can allocate that money and say, however, I don't want to spend this and this and this, what I'd like to see is spent on this, this, and this, or if they can come up with something in this area. And that will at least give them the funds, and it gives them the opportunity to come back with something. They don't have to come back to the commission, but when council adopts this, Dr. Brennan, you'll be presenting what the funding allocation was. And then you can describe that, 2 out of the 8, this is what we're asking them to come back with. If they don't, that leaves the money. That money is not reallocated. Let me explain that. That money goes back to the general fund.
Right.
I'm gonna have to do this later.
Work.
It's gonna take a little
A
more,
little more?
a
Okay.
little more work to do.
Okay. So if you're happy with this 80,000, Dr. Brennan, do you have any more conversation amongst the commission? Otherwise, I'm waiting for a motion.
No. Is there any other thought, any sort of added motion to this being our final sum for the 80,000, option 5?
I'm good with option 5.
Okay, why don't we do a roll call on option 5?
Okay.
Do we have to have certain
Do I-
verbiage?
I
Like,
need a
She
motion?
needs a motion.
Okay, can I have a motion to accept option 5?
I would like to give the motion of option 5 as the 2024 budget.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, and then I'll do a roll call. Vice Chairman Danford.
Yes.
All right, Commissioner Vosin,
Yes.
Commissioner Mueller,
Yes.
Commissioner Smithson,
Yes.
Chairman Brennan.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. We will work with option 5. We will also do the 90,000 with that $10,000 adjustment based on the percentage of what it was of the 80. And you will present this to council the second Tuesday in May. I believe that is the 21st. Actually, I think I'm going to put this on a work session on May 20th.
Okay,
So May 20th is a Monday. It'll be presentation, they'll have discussion, but there'll be no motion. And then council does not go into budget adoptions until June.
okay,
Okay?
okay. And what time is that?
7 PM,
7 PM?
What day
Okay.
was that, the 20th?
Monday, May 20th.
Okay.
Okay.
All
Be
right.
there, be square.
And we're not doing option, where's my agenda?
I'm sorry. So if
We're not
their
doing
meeting is
4?
going to be on Monday, the 20th, do we have a meeting on Monday, the 20th?
No, so this is pretty much your last meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yep, this is your last meeting. The contracts go to council once we get those done and created. And so that's pretty much it. Unless the commissioners or commissioners reach to the chairman and say, hey, I would like to have a meeting to discuss this, and then he'll reach out to me and we'll set an agenda.
The only other issue then that really needs to be resolved by us before we adjourn
Okay.
is, are there any restrictions placed on the funding that's there. In other words, we talked about that, meaning Horizon, the shelving and stuff like that, but are there any other restrictions on the funds so that if they don't meet that, then it goes back to the general fund?
So administratively, we monitor the contracts, we review the quarterly reports. If we have questions about it, we reach out to them directly and say, you know, we have this, this, and this, or they're in non-compliance with the contract and we don't pay.
My understanding is, I think he's trying to say is we choose where the money goes, right? Are you trying to
Correct.
clarify?
Yes. So because we
Okay.
made the alteration to what
Okay, good.
Horizon has about whether or not it's refrigerator and shelving, we said just shelving.
Your motion should have been made that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So-
we are going by,
So what
they
you
said.
funded, the 400, they can spend it any way they want, whether it be shelving or towards a refrigerator. They can spend it any way, but it has to be done on what they applied for.
right.
Okay.
So that's, yeah, if you wanted to kind of delegate where you'd like to see the money, that would have been an individual motion.
Okay.
No, we
That's
don't
fair.
want to do that. That could take.
Does anyone wish to reconsider the motion? Okay,
Okay.
I think you guys have done a good
Okay.
job.
Do I hear a motion to recess the meeting?
motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Motion to
I-
adjourn?
Motion
By
to
Mueller?
adjourn.
Second?
Yeah.
I'll second.
All right, I'm just going to say, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, you are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Okay.